She belongs to me.
Get ready to step into the world of monsters with these 30 best underrated horror films that never got the attention they deserved. And if you're here for more scary discoveries, don't forget to like and subscribe. Number 30, Siren. A bachelor party takes a dangerous detour when the group follows a stranger into a secret underground club buried beneath the city's neon-lit underbelly. What begins as one final night of excess shifts the moment they discover a young woman locked inside a private room. Silent, magnetic, and clearly not meant to be released, they intervene. Some cages, it turns out, exist for very good reasons. Greg Bishop transforms a night of poor decisions into a chaotic creature horror, wrapping its terror in strobing lights and pulsing bass. The film understands that impulse is its own punishment. Number 29, Antlers. In a hollowed-out Oregon town still reeling from the collapse of its mining industry, a middle school teacher grows increasingly alarmed by one of her students. A quiet, hungry boy who arrives each morning more withdrawn than the last. When she reaches toward him, what she finds points to something deeply wrong inside his home. As local law enforcement circles a string of violent incidents nearby, suspicion gradually bends back toward the child and whatever secret he has decided to protect. Scott Cooper's film is a somber, landscape-driven horror rooted in Native American folklore and the mythology of hunger as something older than appetite. The film builds through bleakness, strained connection, and the psychological cost of standing close to something ancient and consuming. It is less interested in shock than in dread accumulated slowly, the way cold settles into a room before anyone notices the window was left open. Number 28, The Headhunter. In a barren medieval wilderness where fog moves between dead trees and silence has weight, a lone warrior has organized his entire existence around hunting monsters. His cabin walls are lined with grotesque trophies. Each severed head is one step closer to the creature that killed his daughter. When a particularly sinister beast's head comes into his possession, something shifts in the stillness around him. Jordan Downey's film is deliberately stripped, a dark fantasy that trades epic confrontation for eerie solitude and grim, repetitive ritual. The horror lives in the negative space. Off-screen kills, labored breathing behind closed doors, the sensation that something wrong is standing just past the torchlight. Minimal dialogue, oppressive atmosphere, a haunting study of obsession, grief, and the increasingly invisible line separating a hunter from what he hunts. Number 27, Underwater. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, a team of researchers at a remote drilling facility watch their routine collapse when a seismic disaster tears through the structure. Communication is gone. The ocean presses from every direction. A mechanical engineer and whoever remains of her crew must walk the dark ocean floor in fragile suits towards something that might be safety. William Eubank's film trades open space for crushing compression, making the deep sea into a void of pure uncertainty. As oxygen thins and equipment fails, the team begins understanding they may not be navigating alone. The film layers relentless tension with shadowy, half-glimpsed threats beyond the floodlights. A pressure-driven descent into darkness where survival means confronting whatever is already waiting in the abyss ahead. Number 26, The Tunnel.
Not quite right. Bail that, Moss.
Beneath Sydney's streets lies a sealed railway network. Forgotten, flooded, and forbidden. When a small investigative news crew descends to expose a government cover-up buried in the tunnels, their routine story mutates into something far more disturbing. Armed with night vision cameras and eroding confidence, they move through suffocating darkness where strange sounds travel through dripping walls, and unseen things shift just beyond the frame. Carlo Ledesma's film leans fully into found footage intensity, using confined geometry and absolute blackness to make every breath feel expensive. The deeper they go, the more coherent reality becomes questionable, and the isolation metastasizes into something beyond geography. Number 25. Mimic.
It's the blood!
When cockroaches begin spreading a deadly disease through New York City's children, an entomologist and her research partner engineer a genetically modified insect to eliminate the carriers. The solution works, until years later something wrong surfaces in the city's forgotten underground tunnels. Disappearances and disturbing discoveries suggest the experiment evolved far past any prediction. Guillermo del Toro fuses urban legend with creature horror, transforming subway infrastructure into suffocating shadow labyrinths. As investigators descend beneath street level, what they find suggests a species adapting with alarming intelligence. The film operates through atmosphere, dripping passages, failing lights, and the deeply unsettling possibility that something engineered to imitate predators may have learned to imitate something considerably more dangerous than that. Number 24. Sweetheart. Stranded after a violent shipwreck, a young woman washes onto a remote tropical island with no rescue coming and no way to signal for help. Survival begins simply: water, shelter, sun. But when darkness falls, the island discloses a far worse problem. Something moves beyond the shoreline, emerging only after nightfall, watching from just outside the firelight's reach. J.D. Dillard strips horror to isolation and raw instinct, turning a deserted paradise into a claustrophobic battleground. Minimal dialogue, relentless tension, one woman against an unseen predator, and no cavalry arriving. Number 23. Crawl. As a catastrophic hurricane bears down on Florida, a young woman ignores evacuation orders to find her missing father. She locates him, injured, inside their flooding childhood home. But rising water is not the only thing closing in. Trapped beneath the structure with the storm amplifying above them, they are not alone in the dark, submerged crawl space. Alexandra Aja's film is a relentless survival machine, stripping horror to endurance and instinct. Claustrophobia and natural disaster combine with a primal predator lurking inches away in murky water. Every creek and flood surge tightens the vice as exits disappear one by one. Number 22. Whir. When a brutal attack kills an American family vacationing in rural France, authorities arrest a large, disfigured local man and consider the case resolved. But a defense attorney begins finding inconsistencies she cannot explain away. Medical records, surveillance footage, and strange physical evidence push the narrative from murder trial into something far more primal. William Brent Bell grounds his creature horror in procedural realism before carefully dismantling the illusion of control beneath it. The film is built on transformation, physical and psychological, and the dissolving boundary between diagnosable condition and ancient myth. Number 21. Cold Skin.
Don't shoot! She learned her lesson.
You can speak with the beasts.
That's...
In 1914, a young weather observer arrives at a remote Antarctic outpost expecting isolation and routine scientific work. He finds the station near abandoned, its previous occupant shaken, fortified, and braced for something that comes after dark. As night falls, the island reveals it is far from empty. Xavier Gens constructs a bleak survival horror that traps its characters between open ocean and jagged rock, where darkness brings relentless assault from amphibious beings rising from the water below. Minimal dialogue, unforgiving landscape, a story about isolation, deepening mistrust, and the boundary between human and other, which turns out to be far less stable than anyone would prefer. Number 20. The Void. A bloodied man stumbles onto a deserted road in the middle of the night. A small town officer rushes him to the nearest hospital. Understaffed, barely functional. As patients and nurses settle into uneasy quiet, hooded figures begin surrounding the building, standing motionless in the flickering dark outside. Trapped inside with no backup and no explanation, survivors begin understanding the real horror isn't surrounding them. It's already inside the walls. The void reaches for retro-cosmic terror, fusing cult paranoia with grotesque practical effects pulled from some other dimension. Sterile hallways become corridors of accelerating madness. Number 19. Monstrum.
물에 둥진 것 같습니다.
During the Joseon dynasty in 16th century Korea, rumors of a monstrous creature ripple outward from Mount Inwang and grip the capital in spreading panic. Beneath the fear, political instability already simmers. A disgraced former royal guard is dispatched with a small group into the mountains to investigate. The film weaves court intrigue through a creature hunt conducted across dense forest and mist-heavy terrain, balancing sweeping period detail against sudden, jarring violence. Paranoia proves as lethal as any beast. As the investigation deepens, alliances fracture and motives blur until the mission has become something more complicated than a hunt. Number 18. Moon Garden.
Something terrible out there.
After a traumatic accident leaves a young girl suspended between life and death, she awakens inside a surreal, shadow-soaked realm assembled from childhood fears and fractured memory. Only instinct guides her forward, and the faint echo of her parents' voices. A nightmarish industrial landscape stretches around her, ruled by a silent, towering presence that sustains itself on despair. Ryan Stevens Harris shoots on haunting black and white film with practical, dreamlike effects that refuse digital smoothness. Dialogue is largely absent, replaced by unsettling sound design and eerie lullabies dissolving the barrier between fantasy and reality. The world feels simultaneously mechanical and mythic, as though it were constructed from the hidden anxieties that childhood quietly accumulates. Number 17. Rogue. A scenic river cruise through Australia's remote northern territory promises wilderness beauty and a knowledgeable guide. Then something strikes the boat, and the journey stops being scenic. Stranded on a shrinking patch of land as the tide climbs, the group comes to understand they are being hunted by a massive saltwater crocodile operating with lethal patience just beneath the surface. Greg McLean turns the open river into a suffocating trap, where murky water conceals precise, calculated violence, and every ripple requires an immediate decision. Resources diminish. Ground disappears. The predator circles and waits while the survivors attempt to think their way out of a situation designed against thinking. Number 16. Deep Rising.
I don't mean to sound like a wuss, but this is starting to freak me out, man.
In the South China Sea, a group of mercenaries boards a luxury cruise liner rumored to carry considerable wealth. What they find is eerie silence. Overturned furniture, no crew, no passengers, and something moving through the steel corridors below them. A clean operation mutates into a survival situation as an unseen force works its way up from beneath the deck. Stephen Sommers fuses high seas action with creature feature chaos, cutting it all with sharp humor and sudden violence. Alliances deteriorate as panic accelerates, and the ocean itself becomes a mechanism of entrapment, isolating whatever is left alive alongside something vast and relentlessly hungry in the water below. Before number 15, here are 4 other movies you have to see. Sting.
Spider bite will paralyze its prey to feed on living.
A young girl secretly adopts a spider she discovers in her apartment building, unaware of how quickly and unnaturally it will grow. Strange incidents begin disturbing the building's residents. The creature evolves into something far beyond what anyone inside those walls is prepared to manage. Family tension escalates alongside the threat growing in the shadows of their own home. Tremors.
We set perimeters. We stand guard.
In the isolated Nevada desert town of Perfection, two handymen notice unexplained deaths and tremors originating from beneath the ground. As the small community pieces together what is happening beneath their feet, the scale of the problem becomes clear. Cut off from outside assistance, the townspeople must survive on collective resourcefulness and whatever is available in a town named, optimistically, after the concept of flawlessness. Frewaka.
وقتم كود بلي.
In a remote Irish village layered with folklore, a care worker is assigned to an elderly woman who believes something malevolent encircles her home. As isolation deepens, ritual and superstition begin dissolving the line between paranoia and genuine ancient belief. The caretaker finds herself pulled slowly into the region's buried history and the quiet, patient fears it never released. Beast of War. During World War II, soldiers stranded at sea after losing their ship must survive on a fragile life raft with no rescue in reach. Exhaustion and fear begin fracturing whatever unity remains among them. Something moves beneath the surface. The open water grows as threatening as any battlefield. Historical survival and creature horror compressed together inside an inescapable rectangle of drifting canvas and diminishing hope. Number 15. Feast.
I'm the guy that's gonna save your ass.
In a rundown roadside bar somewhere on a desolate highway, a group of strangers with their own grievances and secrets spend an ordinary night, until a bloodied man crashes through the door, warning that creatures are already outside. Moments later, the bar is barricaded and under assault from fast-moving monsters that did not come to negotiate. John Gulager's film is a chaotic creature feature running on brutal horror and self-aware energy, establishing immediately that survival here follows no predictable logic. Tension stays high through relentless attack patterns and momentum that shifts without warning. Gritty location, explosive creature pressure, and the constant sensation that no one inside is actually safe. Number 14. Splinter.
I wanna stick you.
A roadside standoff between a young couple and two small-time criminals deposits all four of them at an isolated gas station deep in the woods. The hostage situation ends abruptly when an injured stranger arrives carrying an infection none of them have a framework for understanding. As paranoia spreads and trust collapses, the group realizes they are sharing a confined space with a rapidly evolving organism that restructures living tissue into something violently unrecognizable. Toby Wilkins delivers close-quarters horror built on practical effects and fluorescent-lit claustrophobia, where former enemies are forced to rely on each other against something that does not strategize. It simply consumes everything available to it. Number 13. The Empty Man.
The empty man, 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 the empty.
A retired detective asked to find a missing teenage girl follows the trail toward an urban legend circulating among local teens. A presence known as the Empty Man. What begins as a missing persons investigation unfolds gradually into something far more disorienting, drawing him through secretive gatherings, cryptic symbols, and the growing sensation that forces he cannot locate are already closing in around him. David Pryor's film builds psychological horror through a cult atmosphere at a deliberate, unhurried pace that prioritizes unease over shock. Abandoned campgrounds, shadowed corridors, and late-night rituals accumulate into something that lingers well past the credits. Number 12. Hatching. In a Finnish suburb where surfaces are carefully maintained and imperfection goes unspoken, a 12-year-old gymnast suffocates beneath her mother's relentless expectations. Desperate for approval she cannot earn, she discovers a strange egg in the woods and carries it secretly home. Nurtured in the shadows of her bedroom, the shell eventually cracks, releasing something that externally mirrors the emotions she has been burying for years. Hannah Bergholm blends body horror with dark fairy tale logic, constructing her creature through practical effects that make it simultaneously pitiable and deeply wrong. The domestic environment becomes a pressure system where resentment and loneliness don't dissipate, they take physical form. Number 11. Iron Lung.
enough of us left to be throwing lives away, but there is too much at stake not to take count.
In a grim future where habitable planets have vanished without explanation, what remains of humanity persists on scattered space stations orbiting dead worlds. A convicted prisoner receives one offer of redemption: pilot a small experimental submarine into a moon-sized ocean of blood to collect critical data. Sealed entirely inside the vessel with no windows and degraded communication, he navigates using grainy instruments and delayed coordinates through a lightless abyss he cannot directly observe. Mark Fishbach's film is a stripped-down sci-fi horror powered by isolation and escalating psychological pressure. Minimal space. No clarity about what exists below. The mission becomes a suffocating descent into cosmic uncertainty. Number 10. Lights Out. A troubled young woman returns home to help her younger brother manage their unstable mother, only to find the fear she believed she had outgrown is still very much active inside those walls. The rules are simple. In darkness, it appears. In hallways, bedrooms, and flickering basements, a shadowed presence moves closer, drawing strength from isolation and the fractures already running through the family. David Sandberg converts a universal childhood terror into a relentless supernatural threat, using hard lighting contrast and precisely calibrated tension to keep every scene suspended between safety and exposure. The film understands that a light switch is already a small act of faith, and that faith can be broken. Number 9. Spring. After his mother's death, a young man in freefall flees to Italy, hoping geography will accomplish what willpower cannot. In a small coastal town, he meets a woman whose charm is equaled only by her unpredictability. As their romance deepens beneath cliffs and ancient streets, he notices gaps in her behavior. Subtle wrongness that accumulates into something he cannot rationalize away. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead build intimate romance directly against slow-burning body horror, grounding supernatural elements in emotional exposure rather than spectacle. Love and fear share the same nervous system here. The film becomes a haunting examination of transformation, mortality, and what it actually costs to let another person be genuinely known. Number 8. The Faculty. At a quiet Ohio high school, the primary concern should be grades, social standing, and surviving until graduation. But something is happening to the faculty. A group of misfit students begins tracking behavioral changes in their teachers. A coldness spreading through the staff, a controlled quality to their movements, a loss of whatever made them recognizable. Suspicion converts every classroom into contested territory. Robert Rodriguez fuses science fiction invasion with sharp teen thriller energy, transforming institutional architecture into a battleground of eroding trust. Built on thick 1990s atmosphere, the film escalates through behavioral drift and the specific dread of realizing that the adults responsible for your safety may have already been replaced by something else entirely. Number 7. Sputnik. A Soviet cosmonaut returns from a space mission as its only survivor, carrying something back that the mission logs did not anticipate. Rather than a celebration, he is delivered to a remote military facility where a young psychiatrist is assigned to assess his condition. What she determines is that something has returned alongside him, something that cannot be separated from its host without considerable complication. Igor Abramenko constructs Cold War paranoia inside sterile corridors and heavily monitored laboratories, building tension through secrecy and clinical observation rather than chaos. The bond forming between host and passenger is the film's center of gravity. Psychological strain and moral conflict accumulate into an atmosphere dense with suspicion and quietly building menace. Number 6. Life.
No, you're not going.
6 astronauts aboard the International Space Station retrieve a dormant organism from Martian soil and watch as it stirs to life under examination. Early, it is fragile and genuinely extraordinary, Then it continues evolving, and fascination becomes alarm at a pace that outstrips the crew's ability to adjust. What should have redefined humanity's place in the universe becomes a contained, escalating threat inside steel walls orbiting far above any help. Daniel Espinosa turns the vast emptiness of space into a pressure chamber. Zero-gravity corridors that offer no room to hide and no direction that isn't also a dead end, as intelligence and instinct collide in increasingly terrible ways. Number 5. Pandorum.
Stand down.
There's nothing left.
I said stand down, Corporal!
I remember.
2 astronauts emerge from hypersleep on a massive spacecraft drifting silently through deep space. The ship quiet, their memories incomplete, and the systems visibly failing around them. Moving through shadowed labyrinthine corridors in search of crew members and answers, they begin registering signs that something hostile may already be occupying the passageways with them. Christian Alvart fuses sci-fi survival with creature horror, converting cold metal architecture into a suffocating maze of flickering light and distant, unplaceable sound. As the boundary of reliable reality softens, the mystery of what happened to the ship becomes as threatening as whatever is moving through the dark alongside them. Number 4. The Host. A creature erupts from beneath the Han River in Seoul, tears through a crowded riverside park, and disappears back into the water with a young girl taken from her family's snack stand. As authorities quarantine the area and release conflicting information, the girl's father and his extended, gloriously dysfunctional family refuse containment. They go after her themselves. Bong Joon-ho's film masterfully fuses creature spectacle with family desperation and biting institutional satire, grounding its monster in broad daylight rather than concealing it. The creature is terrifying and unpredictable, but the real engine is the family's frantic, improbable pursuit through a city that keeps working against them. Number 3. Prey.
Whatever did this, I can kill it.
On the northern Great Plains in the early 1700s, a young Comanche woman sets out to prove herself as a hunter in a community that has already decided what she is capable of. When an extraordinarily skilled predator begins moving through the land, disrupting wildlife, threatening her tribe, she moves toward it rather than away. Dan Trachtenberg strips the franchise back to its essential confrontation, building a survival thriller within historical action horror that replaces urban settings with vast open wilderness. The landscape feels no less claustrophobic for its scale as hunter and hunted locate each other across it. Grounded storytelling and tense pursuit sequences build toward a battle of pure adaptability, where survival belongs not to the strongest, but to whoever learns fastest from what they are facing. Number 2. Brotherhood of the Wolf.
And a struggle for power that was far more dangerous than anything they could have imagined.
In 18th century France, a royal naturalist and his Iroquois companion are dispatched to the rural province of Gévaudan, where a mysterious beast has been killing steadily and spreading fear through the countryside. What they find is wary villages, religious hostility, and the growing suspicion that the creature is only the most visible element of something considerably more organized. Christophe Gans fuses historical drama, martial arts choreography, and gothic horror into a sweeping, atmospheric epic that layers mystery onto spectacle without collapsing under its own ambition. The hunt becomes a thread pulled through a web of hidden forces and arranged terror. Number 1. The Fly.
Be very afraid.
Eccentric scientist Seth Brundle has built teleportation pods capable of moving matter between chambers and believes he has accessed the future of human transportation. Journalist Veronica Quaife witnesses the breakthrough, and a passionate relationship forms alongside the scientific promise. Then ambition overtakes caution, and a single experiment alters everything. What begins as triumph begins to warp, Brundle's body and mind transforming in ways that outpace his ability to understand or accept what is happening to him. David Cronenberg's film is a masterclass in body horror that earns its visceral moments through tragic emotional intimacy rather than shock alone. Science fiction becomes a vehicle for something genuinely heartbreaking, a love story whose ending was written the moment the pod door closed. Here are 4 other movies you have to see. The Ritual. Four friends hike through a remote Scandinavian forest to honor a friend they lost. When they leave the marked trail, the forest becomes darker and more resistant with every step forward. Strange symbols, unsettling discoveries, and an unseen presence begin methodically dismantling both their sanity and whatever trust remains between them. Come play. A lonely boy who struggles to communicate finds comfort in his devices until something begins reaching back through the screen. It claims it only wants a friend. Its reach expands beyond digital boundaries. Strange events unsettle the family home, and his parents find themselves confronting a threat they cannot easily locate or name. The Kindred.
He's part of your imagination!
Following his mother's sudden death, a medical student finds cryptic research notes pointing towards secret genetic experiments conducted far from any oversight. He travels to a remote coastal house where the results of that work may still be present. The deeper he follows her research, the more clearly science and morality reveal themselves to be operating in direct opposition. Keeper. A couple retreats to a secluded location to repair what their relationship has become, seeking quiet and distance from a troubled past. Isolation amplifies tension rather than relieving it, and unsettling events disturb the fragile calm they came looking for. The environment feels increasingly watchful, as though it is monitoring them rather than simply containing them. With a slow psychological approach, the film examines trust, control, and the creeping recognition that certain places hold on to their visitors long after the visitors have decided to leave.